Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, almost 75% of the people who read YA books are adults, and I think that's great. So this video was partly inspired by an article I read in the Guardian newspaper the other day, and also by the fact that I've been reading quite a lot of YA and kids books recently, and I've had a great time with them. So the article was talking about a survey that had been done by HarperCollins, the publisher, that suggested that almost 3/4 of the people who read YA books are over the age of 18, so I think it was 74%. And over a quarter are over the age of 28. So lots of adults are reading YA books. And the article talks about, kind of psychological, sociological research and theories and stuff like that about the concept of kind of delayed adulthood, the fact that young people today find it more difficult to kind of transition from their teenage years into being adults because of the terrible state of the world, because of the pandemic and things like that. To be honest with you, I don't really care about that. What I care about is that people are reading books that they enjoy. And it seems to me that if people are reading YA books, if adults are reading YA books, which arguably other adults would frown upon, so that, there has been a bit of snobbishness, hasn't there, about YA fiction in, kind of book reviewing circles over the last few years, and in particular I think that's because of the fact that YA fiction is so prominent in places like TikTok. So serious book reviewers who write book reviews for newspapers, and maybe people like me who do long form video type reviews, can be a bit snobbish about TikTok. And I think YA fiction and TikTok have become kind of quite cemented together in people's minds as both being kind of a quick fix style of media. So, YA books being, perceived as relatively simple, easy to read books, and TikTok videos clearly being, very, very short form videos that are quick and easy to watch. And maybe that, that are in some way kind of sensational almost, that aim for something that grabs your attention immediately, and hooks you rather than something that has kind of depth and richness. Now, I'm not saying that I believe that to be true for either TikTok videos or YA books. I've read some YA books that I thought were absolutely fantastic, and I've watched some TikTok videos that I thought were really, really well done, that were really clever and had something interesting to say. But I think about both there is a snobbishness. So if people are adults, younger adults, not necessarily young adults, but younger adults, people in their 20s, are choosing to read YA fiction, despite the fact that people around them may frown upon that, I think that's fantastic. Because what that says to me is that people are reading books that they enjoy. And if there's one thing this channel is about, it's about empowering people to read the books that they want to read, not the books that other people tell them they should read. So, when I talk about trash fiction on the channel, which I do a lot, it's because of that. It's because I think that trash, for me, reading trashy fiction taps into the things that made me fall in love with reading in the first place. That kind of simplicity, the kind of propulsive narrative, just books that are fun and entertaining and that don't tax my brain too much. And I suspect that, people who read YA fiction get something similar from that, and in particular perhaps are continuing to read books and types of books that they read when they were growing up. So I'm someone who grew up before the concept of YA fiction was even a thing, and I kind of graduated fairly quickly from basically kids books to adult books. I went from reading kind of Doctor Who novelisations and things like that, 1 minute, to Stephen King the next. But I definitely would have read a ton of YA fiction as a teenager if there'd been a lot of it about back then. As I say again and again on the channel, I think it's really, really important that people are allowed to just read the things that they want to read. And YA fiction for many people will be that thing, and we shouldn't frown upon that. We should welcome that. And what this survey certainly doesn't say is that these people are only reading YA fiction. It says they read some YA fiction. Just like me, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you'll know I read a lot of trashy fiction, but I also read a lot of other kinds of books which aren't trashy and maybe are a bit, do have a bit more depth. But you can't only read difficult books, or I certainly can't only read difficult books. I need some lighter entertainment sometimes. So anyway, I also so that was kind of my theorising on this article, my reaction to this article. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. I also wanted to talk quickly about some books I've read recently, both YA books and kids books, middle grade type books. So let's do a YA one first. So I just recently read this one, Spencer Edwards' Emperor of the Galaxy by Alex Pryor. Now this is the kind of book that if this had been published when I was kind of 12 or something like that, I would have loved this book. It's hugely entertaining, and I'm sure it really would have spoken to me as someone who was like entering my teenage years. So this is a British sci-fi book about this young guy, this teenager, I think he's 14, Spencer Edwards, who's like a normal English, kind of schoolboy. Unbeknownst to him, and unbeknownst to everyone on Earth, there is there's like a galactic empire out there. And they need to choose a new emperor, and they end up doing that at random out of all the kind of sentient beings in the universe. And Spencer Edwards gets chosen to be Emperor of the Galaxy and needs to lead a kind of resistance against this evil, kind of evil group of aliens who are trying to cause discord. It was just fun. It was a really, really entertaining book. There was some nice humour in here. He's got he's given this AI assistant to help him out as he kind of acclimatises to being Emperor of the Galaxy, called Bradley, who was very, very funny. There's some good kind of space battles and stuff like that. There's some decent, kind of more close quarters action as well. Some real inventiveness. The different alien species and things like that were fun to read about. And it also does a thing that I love in this kind of book, which has bits where Spencer has to kind of move between being Emperor of the Galaxy and on spaceships and stuff like that, and like being in England doing his homework. So I thought this was a really fun read, and definitely a book I enjoyed as an adult, but definitely also a book I would have loved as a kid. One of the other things I've read recently was a middle grade detective story called Canine Detective Chris Volume 1. So this is about this ex-police dog who ends up being taken in by this young boy, becomes that kid's pet, and together they solve crimes. So again, it's the sort of thing that as a kid, maybe younger than 12, but as a kid I would have really, really enjoyed, but I had an enormous amount of fun with as an adult as well. There's something cosy and comforting about reading books like this that are going to be easy reads, but also that aren't going to have too much dark stuff in them. I read a lot of really, really dark books, so sometimes it's nice to read something that's fluffy and fun. And Canine Detective Chris was definitely fluffy and fun. I'm sure he would be in real life as well as in the books. And then the other stuff I've read recently that I thought was worth reflecting on was some books from a series which are probably one of those books that people do continue to read from their childhood through into adulthood. In fact, I know a number of people who have done this with this series because they were so important to them as kids, and that's the Goosebumps series by R.L. Stine. So I've read 3 or 4 of those recently, and I can see why people love that series so much. For many people, many of my kind of peers on BookTube who make in particular videos about horror books, Goosebumps was like a gateway drug for them. It was what got them into horror in the first place. Now, I'm too old. The Goosebumps books, even the earlier ones, were published after I was an adult, so I never got to read them as a kid. But they're just so much fun. I can't believe R.L. Stine managed to write quite as many as he did. There are hundreds of them. But all the ones I've read have been really, really entertaining. They quite often have really good twist endings. They have a bit of humour. They're definitely formulaic. He definitely has a style of writing which keeps you reading. He typically will end pretty much every chapter with a bit of a cliffhanger, which usually at the start of the next chapter turns out to just be a bit of a misunderstanding. So a lot of them are kind of fake cliffhangers, if you like. But that's the way he writes. That's how he keeps you reading. And I guess having that formula helped him to keep churning the books out. But they're all the ones I've read certainly been really inventive and enjoyable. And they can be a little bit creepy at times, but most of all they're just fun. And I think that formula thing is something that's important. It's something that a lot of kids' books have. They often stick to, a particular formula in terms of the types of characters they have, the types of setups and things like that. So, for example, kids being separated from their parents for some reason is a really common theme in children's fiction, because it gives the kids, the agency to do what they want and to make their own mistakes. You see that kind of thing in YA fiction as well. YA fiction obviously often focuses on, kind of coming of age type stories. And there's something comforting about reading formulaic books. That's one of the reasons I love kind of trashy fiction, something like this Able Teen book. I know exactly what I'm going to get from this book. I can predict almost what's going to happen. And that's nice. That's a nice feeling when you're reading a book sometimes. Sometimes we want to be surprised by books, but often we want that comfort of feeling like we are, for want of a better phrase, in on the joke with the author. It makes you feel, I think, kind of quite close to the author when you know kind of what's going to happen. It makes it a different kind of experience from reading other books, and it can be, really enjoyable and comforting experience. And I think that's something you get from trashy fiction, but also something people get from kids and YA books. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Do let me know in the comments what you think about what I've said. Let me know your favourite kids and YA books, ones that perhaps you still read as an adult. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.